Are you concerned that your child isn't following longer directions or directions that contain multiple steps? Is your child starting to produce single words but not yet putting words together to form sentences? Today's video is for you. We're going to be talking about sentence development, both in the understanding and your child's output. Don't go away. Hey, welcome back, Lingaroo Troop. It's great to have you back with us today. We are in a 5-part series. Today is part 2 of that series. You'll remember a few weeks ago we looked at the 5 main areas of language development. And then last week we talked about semantics or vocabulary. And today we're going to be talking about syntax or sentence development. Any of you folks who are in the computer world, when you think of syntax, you probably think of programming, right? That's a wealth of knowledge that I personally don't have. But it's that idea of coding or putting words in an order to convey a certain message, okay? So we're going to be talking about that today, both in our child's understanding of longer sentences or maybe those multiple step directions. And then we're also going to be talking about sentences that your child creates or starting to put words together. Okay, so before we dive into this, I want to talk about just kind of 3 simple thoughts to keep in mind or kind of just overview ideas as we think about sentences and those longer utterances that we're hoping to see in our kiddo. First of all, just this idea that the objects, like the things in the sentence, are typically not the problem for our kiddos as we move forward in language production. Certainly trying to get those first words is a big deal. Once we get those first words or first signs or first gestures, it's typically the objects that the child gets, right? So they may say apple, or they may say car, or choo-choo for train. The problem we see is often in those connectors, isn't it, right? Connecting either the object to you or me, connecting one object to another, or connecting that object to a location in space, right? So all of those phrases or connectors, that's typically where we see difficulty. One particular example would be in these location concepts. And we talked about these concepts a little bit as we talked about vocabulary and vocabulary concepts. But sometimes we see the breakdown also in this area of sentence structure. So if I give my child a direction or a command to say, get your shoes and bring them to me, or find your shoes, I think they're under the couch, right? They heard shoes, they got shoes, yep, shoes, I know, and they're kind of standing there looking around because they know something that you said involved their shoes in some way, but they've missed those other parts. They've missed the under the couch or get your shoes and bring them to me, right? Those connectors are more difficult for our child to understand. So we're gonna, as we're thinking about focusing on sentence development, both their understanding of these multi-step directions and then also their increased output, we want to focus on these connectors. Okay, the second idea that we want to think about moving into this is just the idea, and we talked about this in another previous video, this idea of what I call the rule of 3s, right? That we want to label and model our language to our children in multiple ways. We never want our child to get what we would think of as being stuck in set or stuck in this way of doing things, that when I want juice, I say, I want juice. Yes, that's great. And initially we're going to target that. But once we get that, or even if we get juice to request juice, we're gonna affirm that. We're going to get excited and celebrate that and throw a party. But then we're going to very quickly as we can, model other ways, right? So it's juice, please. I want juice. Can I have juice? Right? So even as we're modeling that, we're going to model things differently so that we're not always just saying, I want, I want, I want. Okay? So in all of these ways, we want to think about multiple ways. In all of these areas, we want to think of multiple ways to model language and start eliciting multiple ways to request items, multiple ways to describe items, and think about this rule of threes. Okay, the third thing that we want to think about as we're moving into this is just that, how do kids learn? Kids learn by experiencing. Kids learn by doing, right? Kids learn by helping you cook. Kids learn by discussing things and talking with you about the world around them. So much more so, and the research is clear on this, so much more so than setting them down with the iPad and an app, or putting them in front of a video where, they're going to learn learn language in front of the video. Certainly those things are good, and they're not harmful necessarily, although we will be talking about screen time in an upcoming video, and how we want to reduce that. But they're not harmful, but I don't know that they're necessarily helpful, and I don't know that they're necessarily doing what we think they're doing or doing what we hope that they're doing as much as what could be done by just living life, right? This idea at Lingaroo where we're bringing language into life, just bringing language into the everyday experiences of getting dressed, taking our bath, whatever it is that we are doing. There's so much language to find, and it's in that naturalistic, play-based, language-rich environment that our kids are going to truly thrive. So we want to think about that as we move forward. Okay, so we've talked about these three kind of overarching areas of things that we want to think about as we talk about language development. And now I'm going to talk to you just about three simple strategies that you can incorporate into your everyday activities to help address sentence structure or sentence length. Three ways you can help to increase both their understanding of longer, more complex sentences, and then also start to increase their output as well. Okay, the first one is just to work on these connectors, right? We talked about how it's not necessarily the nouns or the people, places, and things that get us kind of tripped up sometimes. It's typically those connectors. And as we think about working on those connectors or modeling or highlighting those connectors, I want you to think about it in terms of a whole to part to whole. Okay, what do I mean by that? Let's say I have a toy here, right? My child's playing with this toy, and I want to start teaching location concepts or getting him to follow longer sentences that contain location concepts. I may start by saying, hey, can you put the shape in the ball? You do it. Show me how you can put it in the ball, right? So I just say the whole sentence, and then I'm going to isolate the part. Watch me. In the ball. Gonna put it in the ball. You do it in the ball. Yeah, and then when he takes it, or I'm helping him with a hand under hand gesture or a hand over hand, we're gonna show him in the ball. Good job, you did it. You put the shape in the ball, right? So I put it back in that sentence. So I labeled the entire sentence, the whole, and then the part, and then the whole. And this can be done in all things, right? If I go, oh no, they're inside, they're stuck. Should we take them out? Should we take them out of the ball? Let's do it. Shake, 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 shake. Oh my goodness, look, they came out. It came out. My shape was in the ball, and now I took it out. You do it. Can you take it out? Right? So it's that type of thing. We're modeling the whole, and then the part, and then the whole. Okay, so then the second thing we're going to do is we can incorporate signs or gestures to help kind of support as more of a tactile cue. I'm working on a longer video that addresses this area of baby sign language. Perhaps you've started to incorporate some of that with your little ones. I'm a huge fan of baby sign language, but I have a little bit, as typical here at Lingaroo, I have a little bit of a different take on that. So that's going to be upcoming, spoiler alert. I'm working on that, and if you want to know more about that, go ahead and subscribe today and click that bell icon, the notifications icon, so that you'll know when that comes out, because we're going to be starting to talk about that more. But as we think about incorporating signs and gestures, this is a great way. Typically we start teaching them to our infants or around that 4 to 6 month of age. We start teaching them to just start getting those first words coming. Once those first words start coming, we kind of see those signs drift away typically, right? And the focus becomes the spoken language. But this transition from single words to two words or multi-step directions or things like that, that's a great time to reintroduce or reuse or bring these signs and gestures back in, right? So again, if I'm gonna do the shape and I want it in the ball, to show them in the ball, you put it, say in, right? And I'm using the gesture and I'm showing them in the ball or whatever it is to show them the shape in, right? It's no longer that we're just talking about the block or the shape or the car. We're moving on, right? If my child is saying cracker, and I mentioned this in the video about vocabulary development, when my oldest kiddo would start with saying cracker, right? And then it became cracker in the bowl, right? And I moved him past that. We reintegrated these signs. We reintroduced these signs and gestures. And again, I'm not as concerned about the actual sign as just a gesture or some type of physical or tactile cue to show them that now there are two parts, right? You have the shape, give it to me. Give the shape to me, please. My turn, right? And I'm using these physical gestures to move it from single words to two words. And using the physical cues and those tactile prompts, whether they be the official signs or just physical gestures, to help move them along in their sentence production. Okay, so the third thing we're going to talk about today is in this idea of incorporating books. Again, the research is so clear. I just this last week got to kind of host a reading group and a group for parents who are really excited about this idea of reading aloud. There are so many great resources out there on the internet and on the web to talk about reading. Shared book experiences. They are some of the best opportunities to stimulate language in our kiddos. They just are. And I will tell you, as I said on that program, as I was hosting that program, I'm less concerned about the actual text of the book. Yes, that's important, and a lot of times there are some rhythms and rhymes and things that kids get used to, and creating a social routine around the book, that's always fun. But I think just the pictures and the experience of having your child on your lap and reading to them, engaging with them, sharing attention around this book, those things are as valuable, if not more so, than just reading the book cover to cover and getting through the text of the book. So I wanted you to be thinking about that. And I know, guys, this isn't to guilt us out, right? We don't need more mama guilt or daddy guilt. We've got enough of that. I know I'm a realist. My oldest son, I think we read probably 7 to 8 books every single night. It was part of our routine, and we were so good at it. And then my second son came along when my oldest was 17 months, and here came number 2, and things just kind of hit the fan, right? Now we have 2 under 2, and now we're doing bath time for 2 and baths and dinner for 2, and whew, that bedtime routine got a little crazy really quickly, right? So I get it. So I'm not trying to guilt you out, but I do want to encourage you, find 5 minutes a day or read a book or 2 books or whatever you can do to fit in this time, whether it's at bedtime, and establish a routine around it and increase that interaction around this book and be stimulating language within your child. And as you're doing so, you're talking about the scenes of the book, you're talking about the pictures, you're talking about the actions, you're talking about what your child is seeing, more so than just reading the text of the book and getting from the front cover to the back. Okay, so guys, if there were 2 simple takeaways, I know we've talked about these 3 strategies, but my 2 simple takeaways for you today would be to increase that reading time, that shared book experience. Find a time, like I said, 2 minutes, 3 minutes a day, whatever it is. Engage with your child around a book and engage with them about the language of the pictures that you're seeing, and see how quickly they engage in that process and come to really love that process. And then also just this idea of conversation, right? Whether it's around a toy or cooking pancakes in the morning, whatever it is, giving them that language, giving them that interaction, and teaching the connectors and teaching them how to relate both to the objects in their world, but then also relating those objects to one another and those objects to themselves. and modeling the language for that and increasing language around all of those things, you will start to see their sentences increase. So guys, I hope this was helpful. Subscribe to this channel, click the bell notification icon so you'll know when we upload new content. And if you haven't yet, check out the video about vocabulary development. And I'll see you next time at Lingaroo, where language comes to life.